The meeting will come to order, please. Please stand and join me for a pledge of allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Our speaker tonight is Dr. Don Crandall. He is the chairman of the Board of Trustees of Muskegon Community College, and he's here to speak to us about the community college. I've met Don a few times, mainly through Rotary, but also in my role as an adjunct teacher here at the college. I know he's very involved in doing good things, not only just for the college and when he was active position, but at Rotary, he's gone down to underdeveloped countries a number of times to help people down there with different projects on behalf of Rotary. So, without any further introduction, I give you Don Crandall.
What I'd like to do today is kind of give you a rundown of the bond proposal that was on the ballot last November, kind of give you some background information on how we arrived there, what our analysis is of what happened, and what our options are going forward. First of all, I want to kind of put education worldwide in perspective. This is global education ranking, and the U.S. ranked 17th out of all nations. This is a list of the top 20 countries as far as effectiveness of education. You see Finland is first, South Korea, and it goes down to the U.S. down here at number 17. Hungary, Slovakia, and Russia are 18, 19, and 20. And it's this kind of position in the world standings of education that has stimulated our government to talk about moving ahead with very aggressive training. If we want to compete on an international level, we've got to make up some headway in the way we educate kids and prepare them for the future in a world market. And so these are the things that we look at here at the community college on a pretty regular basis. And how are we doing? How can we improve our performance and prepare our students for a global economy in a better way? This is just a brief outline of the budget. And understand that this is operating budget, and it has nothing to do with the capital budget that was on the ballot. But I do want to show you something here. And then this lower line, green, is that state aid, and these are the years for the support of our budget. And you can see that state aid went from about 28% down to 25%. At the same time, over that period of time, the pink is property tax. A lot of our operating expense comes from property tax, but with the decreasing value of property in Muskegon, the property tax contribution dropped from 32.6 to about 27.8. And what's made up the difference then is in tuition. And so you see the tuition used to be about a third of the cost of running, a third of the revenues to run the university. The college is now over 45%. The other interesting statistic is that here at Muskegon Community College, 85% of our students are in some kind of financial aid. So we're dealing with people that, a lot of working families that are trying to get an education, upgrade their education, and they're going into debt at a significant number. And so the board looks at this, and every time we have a discussion about increasing the tuition, there's a lot of resistance among the board because we think that it's a difficult problem for the student population right now to continue on. And if we do a major capital improvement in funding, we can't load that on the backs of the students with tuition, in our opinion. We had a planning process actually that started with a master in strategic planning process. It was about 4 years ago. We started the process. Tower Pinster was helpful. We went through our current environment. We mapped out every seat in this building on an hourly basis and a day of the week to determine what the utilization was, decide whether or not we could reconfigure things within here. And we can do some reconfiguring, but we felt at the end of this planning process that it was pretty involved. It involved students, faculty, staff, and community members, and it was a long process. When we finished that process, we went out to a Blue Ribbon Community Committee and had them evaluate what our conclusions were, and that was kind of the basis for the decision that we made in moving forward with our strategic plan. We really had two objectives. Post-secondary education attainment was one of the things. We are a college, and we do want to train people. A lot of our students take 2 years here and move on to four-year colleges and universities. But economic development is another major component. And as we looked at the function of Muskegon Community College and what we need to do, we need to play a major role in economic development in the Muskegon area, and that was built into this plan. What are our needs? Well, the Muskegon Community College now has over 5,000 students. We have had over the last 5 years, averaged over 5,000. Sometimes it went up to 6,500 when we were doing a lot of retraining at the early part of the Depression or the economic downturn. Those were state programs and federal programs that have gone away now. But we maintained that 5,000. When we built this campus back in 1966, the enrollment was 2,000. So we have over twice the students occupying the space that we initially had. And that is one of the reasons why we have a need for additional space. Many of the facilities are 50 years old, including science, health, and creative art space. Today, it's really critical to train kids in the sciences. We'll talk a little bit more about the STEM programs later. And we're using laboratory space that is no different than I used when I was in high school, and that was a long, long time ago. So we really need to upgrade into a modern facility to prepare our students for this economy. The board took all this information from the strategic planning. We had a day-long retreat, spent a lot of time talking about it, and then came up with our prioritization of what we wanted to do. We also have been looking intermittently at state capital outlay process, but the problem is our state stopped funding capital projects about 4 years ago because of their budget constraints. So we still have programs in there on an annual basis, but they're just not getting funded. But we continue to work on that. And a couple of months ago, we had the Senate Finance Committee on campus walking around looking at our facility. We're pointing out some of the things we're planning and hoping that we can get some support from the state government in their capital funding process. It's a gamble, and you never know. But 2 years ago, we were ready to be funded. It passed both houses. It went into a joint committee to work out the final details, and we were dropped from it. So you never can count on it on the political process. The areas that are critical is, the first thing is the STEM. This is science, technology, engineering, and math. And this is the area of focus that the federal government has. They want to increase our capacity as a country and train our students so that we can excel in these areas. And right now, we're well down the list on an international level in training students in these fields and producing it. And that's going to continue to impact our economy if we don't make a change. So there's a major federal effort to improve and increase the number of STEM training fields. So our idea in coming out of the plan is to renovate 20,000 square feet of the existing space to upgrade the quality of those facilities, and then add a 21,000 square foot addition with 6 new science labs, 6 new classrooms, and updated equipment and technology. These are the things that the board feels we absolutely need in order to compete in the science fields. And a lot of kids come here for a couple of years, and if you go to some of the major universities and look at their science stuff, we just can't compete with that, and we have to do a better job of doing that. The other is in the health fields. The gymnasium, health facility, education facility that we have is the most heavily used building. And if you've taken a walk through there, we're using room closets and hallways to hold classes because there's no room in the facility. The weight room consists of a hallway between two rooms, and that's where the athletes work out. The other issue is we want to increase the health education component here. As you know, Muskegon is probably one of the worst areas in the state, and the state is one of the worst states in the country as far as the health status of our people. And if we don't do more in the way of health education, we're going to continue to pay significant premiums in our health care costs because of that. But this would be expanding the existing facility and then renovating the existing facility so that we can expand our health education component. And the last is the creative and performing arts. And this is in a pole barn sitting out back. They have two classrooms held in one room with a little divider, and you can't hold two classes simultaneously because there's no barrier. The lighting is terrible. The building is not suitable for handicapped individuals. It's just a terrible, terrible building. And it's a pole barn that looks like would serve well as a garage, but that's about it. The interesting thing about this is when we talk about creative arts and performing arts, one of the major components, you can see here some of the things that we're talking about, exhibition space, classrooms, but expand lab and multimedia instructional space. This is a key component of this. And when a lot of us think about art and the creative and performing arts, we think about those who are sitting in front of an easel painting or working with their clay building a bowl or a vase or something. But the interesting thing is one of our biggest demands right now is for graphic arts and for computer-generated arts. The hottest field for the young kids right now is computer design, gaming, and internet development. The entire economy is moving to an internet economy, and one of the hottest areas of employment right now is in that field. And we need to definitely increase and improve and upgrade our ability to compete in that arena so the kids coming out of here will be prepared in that field. I visited my grandson's graduation from high school in Utah about 3 years ago, and about 40% of that high school graduating class was going into computer-generated design and gaming. And it just shows you what a very popular field that is, and they're still doing it. So those were the three projects, the three major projects we were looking at the science facility, the health facility, and the arts facility. What are the community benefits? As I mentioned, one of the components was not only the educational component, but the economic development component. And Muskegon Community College has currently working with over 200 companies in Muskegon County and Western Michigan doing job training. This is a major component of what we do. We create customized training programs and develop apprenticeships for companies. There's actually a new state law, that allows companies. We've signed up our first company here. They can forego taxes that they would ordinarily pay to the state, and they can use that money to train employees if they add a certain number of employees. And we're just working with an automotive company supplier in our first project in that program. And then we constantly work with industry to develop new things. The biggest issue is right now in nursing, we have a 2-year waiting list to get into our nursing school. And one of the major problems is we don't have the lab space in order to train the nurses. Our nursing program just had a 10-year certification. That's the maximum any program can have. Our nurses finished the state the state nursing examination, and 99% of them pass. It's a higher rate than any other school in the state. And the tuition is half as much as going across the street to the nursing school over there. So this is a huge benefit to the community. We need the ability to expand that opportunity for people in Muskegon. The thing that you have to understand is that with this bond was a capital improvement bond. And it's important to take a little bit of time to talk about that because none of this money goes into the general operating fund. So we can't sidetrack this into salaries and benefits and things like that. The bond issue was very specific that any money raised from this bond had to go into the capital improvement. And it had to go into one of those three things: a new science center, modern classrooms, instructional technology, and the three components we talked about: the science building, the gymnasium and health facility, and the arts facility. So and we think that with this expenditure, we can increase and positively impact the nursing program, respiratory therapy, and 25 other programs that are currently actively going on here at Muskegon Community College. These are cost projections, early cost projections from the strategic plan. And if you add all those up, it comes to about just under $43 million, and our bond issue was for $30 million, just over 30. So the board went, and there are a couple things that what we did is we just had the architects and engineers price out each of these areas. So we know pretty much what the science edition will cost. We know pretty much what the gymnasium edition will cost. But and then we have estimates for new art media center and redoing some of the existing buildings. The downtown center at $7.9 million. If we had a downtown center and it was this particular size, that's what it would cost. But understand that we wouldn't need all these things if we did a downtown center, and that decision had not been made. It would more than likely house the Arts and Media Center, so that's a duplication. We wouldn't be spending the money up there. That's why the board felt that $30 million was downsized, and we tried to become as economical as we could, and we think that we could do the project for the $30 million, and not this $40 million, which was the first figure that we looked at. We said, no, we're not going to go there. There's some duplication in the cost here, and we wanted to have a more realistic thing. So what the board agreed to do is place on the November ballot a $30.6 million bond measure. And this bond measure, it's estimated that the monthly tax impact on the bond measure was $1.98 per month for $100,000 home value. What we also did in the bond issue, it was a staggered bond issue. In other words, we weren't going to sell all the bonds and take them out all at once. It was going to be phased in over the course of 3 or 4 years, depending on how rapidly we could bring up some of the structure. And so the effective rate of that monthly tax increase actually fell to about $1.94 a month because we weren't borrowing all the money on day one. This went to the voters, and the results we all know. The bond proposal was defeated by about 700 votes, for less than 1%. We did a pre-election polling. We did a lot of work pre-election time, educating the community, doing community surveys, and polling people. And going into it, we had our polling showed that amongst the samples selected, there were something around 74% of the people in Muskegon County were highly favorable or probably favorable in supporting this. And they also told us, we also tested what the tax impact tolerance would be. And we thought that we had a winning program. What happened though is we got into a really difficult election in November. As you remember, I think our election budget for the election committee was the bond committee was maybe around $45,000, and we had a lengthy ballot with all those proposals, statewide proposals, and millions of dollars put into advertising those. And a lot of people told us afterwards, well, we never heard anything about your project. And we sent out mailings, tens of thousands of mailings. But most of you remember, by the time you got to election, the mailings didn't make it from the mailbox to the kitchen table. They passed right in the trash can on the way in. And I think people were just exhausted with all the constant communication. There was a huge educational campaign to vote no on all proposals. We had a lady that came in and talked to the board afterward, and she was just irate. She said, "You've got to go back. My husband and I talked about this. We agreed we're going to vote for the college campaign." We went into the booth. We had our list of things. He came out, and I said, "Well, you voted for the college millage." He says, "Where was I? I voted no on all of those." And she said, "We talked about it." So I think we feel that we got kind of wrapped up in this wave of no. But there are other issues that we are addressing right now. I think there was some confusing language. People tell us that they really didn't understand the proposal, and there was some vagueness out there, particularly circling around the downtown campus that we have to get over. Right now, state sources are drying up, and federal sources are inconsistent. We really need the community commitment to advancing education and economic development. I think that for Muskegon to survive, that's a critical thing. And we think that Muskegon Community College has been, and it currently is, and will be in the future, positioned to help in that economic development and education. But we need some help to increase and improve the facilities that are now close to 50 years old in order for our students to compete on an international level. Next steps, what we're doing is we have community outreach forums. They've been doing them here at the college. We've reached out, we've done some Rotary Clubs, we've been to some outlying communities, and just get an idea of what they think and where they're going and what's happening. We look at campaign strategies, confusing issues, what's the future direction do these people feel, and generally we look at, they have a chance to vote individually on the three different packets: the Science Center, the Health Facility, and the Arts Facility. And it's interesting that the general support of those across the community so far from these community forums is pretty close. I think the science was the highest with about 89% supporting that, and it drops to 87, 86%. So there's not one that's more overwhelmingly desired by the population than another. One of the things we talk about is, do we want to go back to 3 or downsize it to 2? So these are one of the things we talk about. The confusing issue primarily circles around the downtown campus. And the board has always maintained that we're not economic developers. What we're primarily interested in is creating an educational institution that supports the needs of our institution. To the extent that that could have some side benefits, some spin-off benefits, we're okay with that, but that's not our primary purpose. So when we go to the community, even before the election, it was clear in talking to the community, there were some people that absolutely would not support it if we went downtown. They thought it was a stupid thing to do. We're not in downtown development. Stay out there on the campus. We had other people that just exactly the opposite view. We want you to be downtown to help with the revitalization of downtown, and it's important that you be there. And I'm going to vote for you only if you have that. And so here we are, and we continue to test that question, and we continue to get this bipolar divide. For the majority of the things, there's general agreement across the community about what they want us to do, but the one area of difficulty is trying to nail this down. 40% think we should be downtown, 40% say we shouldn't be, and the other are kind of somewhere in between. So the struggle the board is having, we didn't commit to a downtown facility. What we committed to is if the village is passed, we're going to build these 3 facilities, the health, the lab, and the art center. We haven't decided where. And the reason is the dynamics in downtown are changing on a daily basis. When the Chronicle building came online, we took a tour of the Chronicle building. We've been suggested that we should look at the Hackley building, the downtown original Hackley administration building. We've been through there, looked at library, looked at it, spent about $15,000 doing the engineering study. It's a huge expense to try to save that building. And so we have looked at all these things over the course of time, and it's still difficult to commit where we know where the science building is going. It's going to go right out there. We know where the gymnasium is going. It's going right there. The issue is in the arts building, and we're trying to spend as much time getting input from the broad community before the board makes a decision on where to go with that. And I'd be interested in hearing your feelings. So the board is going through this. We're also going to, we've had survey mailer surveys that we're going to do again. We have phone surveys that we're going to do again, and a general consensus of the community and how they feel on these issues. But we're trying to define the issues a little bit better in the community forum before we go out for the actual surveys. And then the board will take that information, and then our decision will be, do we want to go for another millage or not? And if we do, when? We're inclined not to want a special election. That costs a lot of money for everybody. We want to tack it on to an election that's already going on. What's the scope of the project? Are we going to downsize it? Are we going to split it? Are we going to continue to go? We haven't made those decisions. We're still examining those. And then we're trying to resolve any confusing issues and make the public aware of what the project is. So that's kind of where we are with this project now. And questions? Do you have any questions? Yes.
Dr. Crandall, one of the confusing issues to me is, maybe it's semantics, maybe it's not, but one time you talk about a health center, another time you talk about a gym, and is it really an athletic center, not a health center? Is the school of nursing and respiratory therapy in the gym, or are they in the STEM center?
Well, a portion of it will be, their labs will be in the STEM center, but there are health education components that will be going into the expanded facility. Right now, there are classrooms held in the gym, but they're held and they support other programs, but they're held in the hallway or in the broom closet. So a lot of it is expanding the locker room, that component of a gymnasium, but all the classroom functions will be general support of health education. Yeah.
Well, a couple of things. First off, I want to say thanks for being here and presenting this. In the last few weeks, I've gotten more information on the bond issue than I had before the election. Now, this is the second opportunity I've had this.
Make sure everybody can hear you, Fred.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is the second time I've had an opportunity to sit and listen to a presentation. Both of them are different presentations, by the way. But a couple of things. One is because I am a student here, I can attest to the fact that at least in the arts building is absolutely the slums, and something needs to be done. And there are a tremendous amount of students that do come here in order to start their career in arts, fine arts, graphic arts, design, kinds of stuff before they head off through partnerships with Kendall College and to other colleges. And I think Ferris is where the video designers are primarily steered to. So that does need to be done.
But I think one of the ways that you can help to convince the community that some of this money is needed, and therefore taxes need to be raised, is to provide some dollar amounts of community benefits. How does the community benefit in terms of monetary returns? And there are ways to provide those kinds of metrics to say these are the kinds of jobs that will be created, these are the kinds of jobs that young people will be able to enter, these are the industries that will be able to be supported by having the workforce be developed by the community college. And this is the kinds of things that you can use the college for as a stepping stone to other, larger four-year institutions, or step off and become, that two-year graduate that goes out and goes to work. And I think that if you start to put some numbers behind those things, it would be very, very beneficial. Because I can tell you, I know that at least several people in this room right now that, as a reaction to almost anything that increases their taxes, without having those numbers, they're going to say no. But with those numbers, they're more than happy to consider it and could possibly be a yes if they understand what the benefits are. They're going to come back to the community and back to their families by paying those taxes. And so I would like to see even at the end as a handout, maybe that you hand out and say, here are some of the projections that we project as the benefits to the community.
I think that's particularly true of the Art Center. I mean, I've got some nice pieces of work from Fred. I'm very happy to have them and use them. But I don't want to pay taxes so that Fred can make pottery and give away to his friends. Oh, it is good.
I tell you, my pottery story, my son went to Kalamazoo College, and he took his foreign study his last semester, and the policy was you couldn't do foreign study the last semester, so I had to pay another full semester's tuition, and it was pretty expensive at community college, or at Kalamazoo College, and the only course he took was pottery. And I think that piece of pottery cost me about $15,000. And it crumbled the first time we used it. So.
But I do think, if you broke this down into benefits for the community from the standpoint of jobs, what industries are being helped, what kind of things the students can actually go off and do afterwards, and what the benefits are to the families in particular, I think you'll be far and away ahead of the ball game with convincing taxpayers.
Okay, before we go on, I want to come back to Dave's question because what I want to tell you is if you go on the Muskegon Community College website, you can look for strategic plan, and the whole Tinkster report is there, and it breaks down everything, room for room, and if you want to know exactly what's going in that health facility, they will have it listed there. I just, it's hard to, I don't know exactly what you're looking for, but if you go there, you'll have all the detail.
But I think it's important if the board decides to put that on the village to make that clear, that you're not just talking about an athletic center.
And that's why we call it the health facility, because there's more than just an athletic center.
I sure thought it was a better gym last fall when I put it.
Yeah, but you got to be careful that people don't think that you're not being totally honest with them on how you're defining that.
You're right. Okay, that's good.
Kyle, you have a question.
Yeah, maybe you can cover this because I was late, but you gave an example about the nursing program. How there's a 2-year waiting list, and it's because of the limits of your facility. But you have a good people are passing the test. You guys do a good job with it, and it's half the price of Baker across the street. Supply and demand tells me that if there's a lack of supply and more demand, then that would raise the cost of tuition to cover it. Your needs as far as facilities are concerned, and you should be able to do it maybe 3/4 of the price of Baker.
And the board is looking at that. The policy right now is there's a standard fee for a credit hour. And it doesn't matter whether the credit hour is nursing or machine shop or whatever it might be, the price is priced up. But major universities, when you get into the higher tech, high cost training programs, there's a premium that's charged on the tuition of those. It's not something that historically has ever been done here. The board's having that conversation right now. If we want to support and expand the nursing, and even with this facility, we may be in a position to do a differential tuition for that particular program. So we're considering that. It has not been done in the past year, but it's something that we can do.
Fred said he'd pay more for his class.
I'm already paying more. Students pay more.
Yeah, I remember you mentioned something about advertising for the proposals in the last ballot that we had. How much money did you guys put into the advertising and all that stuff for that?
We put in, there were some things before the proposal went on the ballot, or before we decided there were some educational materials that were put out on behalf of the college. But then once we made the decision that we're going to go for the ballot, then the college has to step up and can't fund any of it. So we had a political action committee that raised money to support the campaign. And as I said, that budget was around, we spent about $50,000. And those were donations from the community. We didn't have enough to, we couldn't have bought television anyway because all the proposals had millions of dollars they were spending. They were buying up all the available space on the TV. So because of the nature of the election, most of the vehicles that you usually try to get into were really overpriced and used.
Well, the reason I asked that was you mentioned in your presentation about something about millions there. So that's what was the right in my head saying, hey, if you invested $1 million into a political campaign, why can't you just invest?
No, we didn't. We raised about 60,000, but the campaigns for the other ballot proposals were well into the millions of dollars, and that's what we were competing for time and attention. Yeah.
You had mentioned that, I think you said with an automotive company that you'd worked out a deal where they're getting a tax break for coming in and hiring some of the students or something to that effect. My question would be, have you reached out to some of the other major corporations within Muskegon County? I know that Bayer has that Crop Science Center. There's 3M that has a center here. Some of these other companies, and see if they would be willing to put, some of the money into some of these, like the STEM Center, for instance, that would benefit them by getting local employees.
Yeah, we have talked about that, and one of the things I think on one of my slides we talked about going to the community for some local funding. But what we're thinking primarily is that the bond issue could create the infrastructure. We would go to the community. I've already had some conversations with the chemical industry in town and looking for private donations or industrial donations to help supply the buildings that we have. And so we are looking at that. And the other program, I didn't communicate very well. We're not sending students there. These are people that work at the company's expanding, and they're hiring people, and we're training them. And then if they hire a certain amount, then the withholding tax that the state would usually collect on their, and they have to have a certain level of hourly wage before they qualify. It can't be a low level. It's got to be a pretty decent hourly wage before they qualify. And then the state takes the withholding money from their paycheck that they would ordinarily go to the state, and that goes back to help train them, pay for the training. That's the program. It's a new state program. We have our first company.
Yeah, I have two questions.
Speak up so we can all hear you.
Okay, I have two questions. You said that when you went out for this millage that it was going to be $1.98 per thousand on the value of a home, but because you weren't taking the full amount, the amount would only go to $1.94 per thousand. So when you took the full amount, in other words, this would be a graduated increase in our taxes every year? Is that what you're saying? So we might have 3 years where we're only paying $1.94 per $1,000 assessed value, but then in 3 years it will go to the $1.98.
Yeah, it's basically the money goes to pay off the bond, and if we don't take down the bond, if we don't borrow the money because we're not ready to build that particular building, then we don't pay. And there are a couple ways to do taxes. One is to have a fixed rate and you pay that rate no matter what. And there are some advantages and disadvantages. And the other is that you only pay for what the college spends, and that's the proposal that we use. In other words, if we ended up getting a state aid or financial support from industry, we would then borrow less money to complete that project, and then you wouldn't be taxed. That's the kind of a program that we had. The other program, but the difference, there's a downside to that, and that is if the rates go up or down, then that millage can go up or down to pay for it, but it'll only pay for the millage. The other, if you pay a set amount no matter what, if rates go down, we get a windfall because we're still collecting the same amount. It's more than we need to pay off the mortgage. We elected not to do that. We elected to do it so that we're only borrowing the money.
You get close to them, then you have a natural inclination to talk loud enough for her to hear you.
Okay. So the question was, what does it mean? And the reason that figure dropped from 198 to 184, whatever it was, is because the way the bond was structured, it's a phased structure. All the money is not borrowed at one time. It's only borrowed as you need it, as the facilities come online. And therefore, you're not paying interest payments on that bond issue because we haven't drawn down the money. And if we elect not to, if we get outside contributions from state or federal grants that help support that, then we don't have to borrow that money at all. So it could be significantly less than that. It could be $1.50, but we have.
So that's a maximum.
That's the
maximum.
Absolute maximum is the 198, and it's not going to go above that no matter what happens. But it could go down.
I just want to point out also that you said $1.98 per thousand, $1.98 per 100,000.
I'm sorry.
And according to the chart, not assessed value, but actual market value is what you're basing.
And that's down right now. Right. Any other questions?
No.
Yeah.
Bob's going to have one.
Oh, go to Bob first.
All right, Bob.
This will be easier for you.
Yeah. Dr. Crandall, one of the things that, I sort of followed this and back when you did in November. But now that I think about it, I'm a little disappointed in that, you specified health education, arts, and science, which is fine. But one of the things that this community is missing, and I sort of was thinking that this millage proposal addressed it, is career, technical training for people that don't want to hire it. Now, art is fine, but what about, I know you got a CNC program, but is that up to date? Is that, you got welding, you got electricians? I know some colleges have cement programs. I mean, people need to do that for a job.
We have an alternative energy program going here, and the lab space.
Can't hear you.
We have an alternative energy program going as well, and the lab space that will support all those, not only the person that's going to go on to nursing school or medical school or engineering, but also supports people that are going into technical fields and training for a job. Right now, I was told that the average operating manual for a machine is at about the 14th grade level of reading. You can't go in to a factory today with a high school education and run the machines that are there. And so part of this, the lab facility is going to be expanded much beyond that. It's going to support all of our programs. Over 25 programs are going to benefit from that, not just nursing, respiratory therapy. So there is a lot going on. We're working closely with industry. Cement is one of the programs that community colleges can offer a 4-year degree in. We haven't made a decision that we want to go into cement processing, but we have a partnership with Community College up north, and we're looking at maritime training to train maritime workers. And that's not a four-year program. It's something that we can work at community college. So they're training for specific industries. And so we work with over 200 companies, identifying their needs and setting up training programs. And a lot of it has to do with lab and technical training. And that's going to be supported by the program. We're also looking at a federal economic development grant but they won't pay for any classroom, but they'll pay for building a machine shop or machines to go in to train on. And one of the things we're looking at, if we get the new art center, we already have people in our industrial training division here at the college are looking at the pole barn, and we already have conversations with the Federal Economic Development Authority to build a facility that will just train specifically for jobs in that arena. So we are looking at that, and that's part of the long-term plan. We had a list of $40 million in need, and we're trying to get that down to $30 million, under $30 million, and some of the things are just going to have to be delayed.
Got a question over here.
Yes.
With, like you said, state and federal revenue on the decline, which is our tax money, by the way. So when you talk about, federal grants or state grants, that's our tax money being repurposed. With those on the decline, this is actually a two-part question, by the way. How can we reasonably expect, citizens here to pay more in taxes? And the other part of that question is, if there's a problem with our education system, throwing money at it usually is not a solution. That's a Band-Aid on the squirting jugular of a broken system. Shouldn't we look to countries like Finland, who have a different education system, and their cost per student?
We're actually we have one of the major efforts here at the community college and across the state of Michigan is student success. And it used to be that access was the key, and community college was built over the years on giving access to education. And that emphasis has shifted from access to success. If you bring people in and they spend their 2 years here and they go away and they're not any better prepared, then that's a problem. We also have a problem in that students we're getting from the high schools in the community, and this is true not only in Muskegon, it's true across the state and across the country. Kids are coming into community college and ill-prepared. They use up their student scholarships, getting to a level where they should have been when they came to us out of high school. So what we're doing at community colleges, we're reaching back through the intermediate school district and working with all the high schools in the community, setting up expectations of what students need in high school in order to be successful here. And we're working closely with the instructors in the high school. The state just passed an early college where kids now in the 11th grade, 10th grade eventually, can enroll in college. They will be a student here at Muskegon Community College. Their tuition will be paid for from the K through 12 budget, and they will start taking high school courses and then college courses simultaneously. They're limited to how many college courses they can take in the 10th grade, 11th that expands 12th grade. Then they have one more year to 13th grade, and they graduate at that time with an associate's degree from college. And it's no out-of-pocket money. It's paid for by the school system. This is a program that just passed by the state and just started. So we're starting to reach back into the 10th grade level. We've always had, for a long time, we've had dual enrollment where high school students will, if a high school can offer an advanced physics class, for instance, they can come here for that physics class. And those are some of the economies that we do. If a single school system can't support an instructor and facilities to offer a certain course, we have buses pull out here every day, and high school students come in and take a portion of their course studies here. So we're doing that.
But the question I was hoping to get answered was, if we have a broken system and the money that we're putting into it now is not giving us a good result, why would we drop more money into a system that is broken and is producing a less than desirable result?
I think the K through 12 system is broken, I think our success in our nursing program, for instance, shows that that's not broken. And what we're trying to do is reach back into that system and prepare the kids better so they can be more successful in the computer. That's what we can do in Muskegon Community College. What the state legislature can do in revamping the whole education system or the country as a whole, that's another issue. But I think we're limited in what we can do, and we're trying to do our best to prepare the students to be successful here. Yes, Colin?
We did the tour in the little nursing room, a little claustrophobic in that environment. But we also passed, or tried to pass that bill where it gave a 4-year degree in community colleges, despite universities' opposition to it. And it ultimately got pulled out of it, unfortunately. How many, but what I'm interested in, and the reason we did that was because there was nursing shortages in the state of Michigan and I guess across country. What kind of lists do you have, waiting lists and that kind of thing? How many more students could you accommodate in nursing right now?
We have a 2-year waiting list to get into the nursing program now. And
would this millage help with that? Or
yes.
How can you address
it would help. We would
shortages
expand
in
our
nursing?
facilities, and so we could decrease the waiting list for the nurses to get in the program. What Holly's talking about is the state was considering granting community colleges an opportunity to grant 4-year degrees, and one of them was in nursing, another was cement, and maritime studies, and I don't know what the others were. And this went through the legislative process, and because of significant resistance from the major universities, nursing was pulled out at the last moment. So we're not able to offer a 4-year degree in nursing, but we still offer the associate's degree, the 2-year degree, and then they transfer on to a 4-year institution.
We were able to pass culinary arts, energy production, maritime, and cement technology. Because not all 4-year colleges had those things. But I think the main driving force for most of the folks on the floor was to be able to turn out more nurses and make it more economical for people to get their degrees.
And that's the one.
So the legislature failed to allow it because the big universities didn't want it.
Yeah, I voted for it.
Yeah.
That's
Basically, the sponsor.
I have 2 separate questions.
Please speak loud enough for them to hear. Talk to them.
First of all, isn't there also a need for the nursing program to have clinicals?
Yeah.
And that we're already maxed out in the local medical community as to how many clinicals we can offer. So even if we have new facilities, there's still going to be a restriction on
Yes,
the
that's
waiting
what,
list.
you're absolutely right.